But one of the things they did is they chose Portuguese. They were a Portuguese colony before.
Mm-hmm.
I've done Rwanda, I've done Uganda, I've been Kenya, which is not post-conflict as such, but now I'm going to Timor-Leste. And at that time, just before going to Timor-Leste, I also got an opportunity to go to the Balkans, to Kosovo, and where the conflict with Serbia was going on in the Balkans. So I spent some time in Kosovo. The challenge there was the language. They spoke Serbian and not English, so it was more difficult. But I spent 3 weeks visiting the schools, seeing the education system, seeing the universities, how challenging it was for them also to live in this duality. You know, they wanted independence. They were the Kosovars are Muslims in there, but the Serbians are Christians. So all of these complexities that were there. And then I went to East Timor and I did a project there on migration and mobility and health. Because there they had a referendum and they had actually basically said they didn't want to be part of Indonesia. They wanted to be a free country. But one of the things they did is they chose Portuguese. They were a Portuguese colony before. So then Brazil and Portugal came forward to help them rebuild. So I did this large study with the International Organization for Migration. And whilst I was there, I took 2 of my master's students with me to do the study. Wow. And it was a wonderful experience. And we saw this advertisement from UNICEF for a study in Sri Lanka, in the conflict areas of Sri Lanka, looking at child soldiers. And I said, oh, you know, we are in East Timor. We are looking at a different region, but they want us to do, we were looking at vulnerabilities and vulnerability assessment. And they wanted us to do a vulnerability assessment with child soldiers in the conflict areas of Sri Lanka. And we just applied. Sitting in East Timor, we applied for this project and we got it. So my next thing was going to the conflict areas of Sri Lanka. I went, and that to me was really interesting because they had this parallel nation state within a nation state, you know, with the LTTE at that time. And I visited 6 of the 8 districts. So I visited Kilinochchi, the headquarters, Mulaitivu, Vavonia, and Batikloa, as well as I visited Ampara and Manar. I didn't go to Jaffna and I didn't go to Trincomalee because the situation started deteriorating there. They were having the peace talks with Norway. And what was interesting for me in all of this, when I talk to people, all people want is peace.
Yeah.
They just want peace. They want to live with their families. You know, they say that we want this. The moment there is peace, there's a wonderful commentary on life. You know, the cafés open. People sit on the sidewalks, you know, have their cups of tea, coffee, beer. They have their food everywhere. Everywhere I've gone, when there's peace, people have that. You know, people want to be out and about wherever. But peace, when peace is not there, and when there's conflict and war, it erodes that. And when I talk to women in Sri Lanka, you know, there were villages which had no men. So they were war widows. You know, they didn't know what had happened to their husbands. They had disappeared. Were they in prison? Were they dead? And they said, but we have to continue living. And they said, you tell us to look after our children, no problem. You tell us to actually give birth, no problem. You know, help in birthing. But peace is something that we want and we'd like to have.